Yeah. So at least this isn't before Thanksgiving, which is when my daughter, like November 1st, she started that. I was like, don't.
No.
You're not playing that stuff in my house.
No, yeah, there's statute of limitations as far as like when Christmas music is allowed to start.
But George Michael is always welcome.
So, yeah, I'm playing this because, here we are, Soccer Mom Sunday, right? We're in the holiday season.
Mellow Mushroom, Sunset Hills.
Mellow Mushroom, Sunset. It smells so good in here, too, by the way.
And I'm hungry right now, so I might have to take a break from this and place an order.
I am 38 hours into a fast.
Oh, why are you doing that?
You ever hit the wall and you're just like, I feel horrible,
yeah,
and I don't know why. And then typically it's food and beer.
Oh, I just eat more food. That's wrong?
Well, okay, where were we? Oh, we were out in Phoenix for the MLS Next Fest.
Yeah, you were gone for a bit.
And we ate a lot. And just, you sit on the plane for 3.5 hours after that. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I came home, seeing how it goes. So it was a little rough walking in here today. And I'll give him credit.
It smells wonderful as always. You and I were both away last week because I think while maybe you were coming and I was going, you were headed out, and I was down in Texas with the one and only Ruth Harker.
Well, you were with more than just Ruth Harker.
Yeah, it was. I'm like, be cool. Act like you're a professional. Be cool.
I was there. Did you fangirl out?
Totally did. Well, I mean, only when they came in the U.S. Women's National Team came in my vicinity, which they were amazing, by the way. But I was like, this is also their night. They played China, and then the next night they had their players' ball, and they had all the awards that we would normally see on any club, high school, college team. Like, most supportive player, I believe, was Crystal Dunn. Most competitive was probably also Crystal Dunn. Where they gave team awards, like end of the year team awards out, and then to see them dressed fabulous and looking fabulous in a completely different way. And I really loved and I enjoyed talking to some of their parents who were there about asking about their journey and all that. Do you know what the common theme was, though, of these very successful ladies, the parents?
Stay out of the way.
There you go. How did we know? How did you know?
I took a guess.
But that was the common theme, and it was really awesome to hear. But then I'm also to say, who was it I was talking to? Sam Cook's parents, I think it was, and I think that's right. And her dad apparently did the writing for Brianna Scurry's book as well as Carly Lloyd. So, he's steeped in soccer for quite a while, but he's like, when it comes to this is her thing.
Yeah.
It's not our thing. We're here to support. And her mom is really grounded too. It was like, sometimes we're here just so she can cry, because she's like, I don't know if you know, but these ladies are sore. Like they're tired. Their bodies are beaten up half the time.
Are you saying they're under a little bit of stress?
Yeah, they're yeah. So they were dancing and letting it all hang out in a really fun way, and it was cool to see them connect with Ruth, right? And for them to see and to be like, hey, this was the originals, and if somebody didn't know because they were really young and they didn't know, they were made to know, and that was awesome. I love that.
But did you control yourself? Was it more of like a little shy wave, or did you fist bump when they were close enough?
It was more of a handshake. I got a couple of hugs, which was awesome. Or I got, when Lynn Williams and Crystal Dunn are like, girl, you look good. I'm like, oh, can you record that for me?
Wait. Say that again. FaceTime. FaceTime my kids.
Apparently, Rose Lavelle's mom and dad, but mostly mom, who's hilarious. She's the best time ever. She's a Fireball girl. So she got, like, if you were in her vicinity.
Fireball?
They did a round of, okay, I was like,
That's my mother-in-law.
And actually split it with another person because I don't like it. And so we just but she came to play. And Rose Lavelle's mom had a great time. It was such a great lady, too. And dad was so great. They live in Cincinnati.
So you're saying it was a good time?
It was a great time. And again, I looked at my role as if anybody was in my vicinity or got an introduction, heck yeah, I got a picture, told them my daughters played, that, they love them. But at the same time, for me, this was Ruth's night. Ruth walked the red carpet as she should have. And, anywhere she was, I'm like, let me take a picture of you. Let me take a picture of you. Because it was great. It was great to see that kind of line of sight.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw the photos. Looked like a blast. I mean, you were in Texas. We were out in Phoenix. It was crazy out there too. Like the MLS Next has expanded so much.
I can't even
on the
keep
boys
track of
side.
it.
Like the number of teams, and that's a whole other issue, another debate / topic. But the enthusiasm that these kids have, like random teams going to a corner to watch Philly Union versus Real Salt Lake or whatever. Like these kids love each other.
Yeah.
And then there's the factor of Footy Access is there and US Youth National page, all the social media pages, and they all know who those photographers are. So these kids are chasing down, and it's this like really weird thing going on. And I've been thinking about like our show and these conversations that we have, the pressure these kids are under. It's just ridiculous. Like, because the social media and the expectation, and I mean, the first night's games, if there was 2 scouts there was 50 standing on one corner, and they all have their gear. There's NC, there's IU, there's all of them, and these kids are 15,
right?
14, 15, 16, and I get it. They're entering into that phase, but man, the pressure.
Yeah.
Because back when we all played, you didn't see them all just congregating on a corner. They were hidden in the bleachers.
If they came.
So you never
right?
knew.
If they were out there.
Yeah, you knew there were certain games you're like, okay, I know somebody's here, but you didn't have that like wall of pressure staring at them.
No, and that is massive.
It was crazy.
For a teenager who, sometimes can't even. My 17-year-old can't even manage himself executive functioning sometimes, so much less, manage yourself in front of in a professional manner, which adults who couldn't do that and have that kind of thing on them, that's a big deal. And to go perform. Yeah,
it was fun though. I was glad. The 15 struggled a little bit. 16's our boys 3-0. 14 goals for, 1 against. So they're kind of clicking right now. So it was a lot of fun. Kept Jared happy. And as long as Jared's happy, everybody's happy. And we did get him on a mechanical bull, by the way.
Who? Bertrand?
Oh yeah, and Zach actually. Both of them did. It was pretty funny.
Did you get on?
Hell no. Remember we were talking.
Like, I'm the photo taker.
No, the smart one.
Yeah.
Like those dudes. It was crazy. This place called Buffalo Chips in Cave Creek. So it's way north of Phoenix, right before you get to the mountain range on the north side. Cowboy town. It was crazy. Like people were parking horses in the beer garden from their neighborhoods. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was right up our alley.
Well, I feel like we got to welcome our guest in now because
it's time.
We talked a little bit about performing under pressure, and if a lot of our guests are used to that, but this nice lady is also Lindsay Kennedy Eversmeyer. Lindsay, first of all, thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's been 2 times I asked you on short notice, and this one worked. Boom.
Boom. I'm here.
And so for anybody who doesn't know, and my computer just all the bullets, so many bullets, right? So from being a men's coach at, is it Southwestern Illinois College, SWIC, Southwestern. I just noticed SWIC. So
SWIC, I know.
Southwestern Illinois to, of course, playing competitively yourself, being involved in the WPSL on the women's side of the game, one of our own voices in City Park Stadium, giving game analysis those days, and many other things to keep track of. Do you know the first time I came in not real contact with you? I think I shook your hand that night, but we didn't know each other. Was when you were inducted in the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, and you got a green jacket.
I got a green jacket.
And do you know what really stood out to me that night was I didn't know you. I was sitting there watching and just being in awe, and some complaining to myself that there are more women. At least we got one here, but like there's more. I hope she's one of many. Yeah. Was something that you made in your comments when you were kind of thanking everybody, right? And you said something that I don't know if many. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but I don't know if men would necessarily feel it the same way I felt it when you said it about the time, what you were doing, right, with everything that you're doing, about how you knew that took away from time with your husband, took away from time with your kids. And I mean, I literally felt this stab in my heart as you were talking about it. Like you got very emotional.
It almost makes me tear up thinking about it.
Right? Because to do the things that you do, which are awesome. Like we read that stuff on paper and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. There is always a cost.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to know, to me, that when you're doing something like that, I have to believe that if I was in the vibe of your family, that they would have felt appreciated in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people understand sometimes how coaches, they have to sacrifice their families. It's a lot, and that's time you don't give back. And I remember, especially with my oldest, because I was telling you before, he had practice 4 days a week.
How old
games.
is he now, by the way?
He's going to be 24.
24, so it gives kind of perspective.
Yeah. It is, yeah. And, I know there's games that I missed or practices that I could have watched. And there's moments, where I was like, I wish I was there, but I'm here training, or I'm out of town with my team, or, whatever. So that's just, I look back on it, and I'm not like, I shouldn't say that I, regret it, because obviously, I love what I do, but those are the sacrifices that you have to make. And, it just, it makes me sad. But it's important to let them know that I appreciate them for understanding me and supporting me through that.
Do you know, it's funny, and you and I are often in the stadium together I can't believe it's not very far off, by the way. We're getting ready for this next season for St. Louis City. But at one point in time, I was feeling this way, right, just this past season. And I remember my 12-year-old was around. He's the soccer cray-cray. He's we got him a next man up ornament. It looks really cool. He thinks, after he plays in Europe, he might consider playing in the MLS. That's his, goal, whatever. But Liam, I had just missed so much in like a couple of weekends. And I remember saying, I just don't know if nobody say that I want to do it, but I also don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep missing. He's like, Mom, I love that you do this, right? I love that he's like, you're happy. I like to go to the games. I don't get him tickets, by the way. But he's like, I like that you're a part of this. It seems to make you happy. So like but I remember thinking of you going, I bet that's how she felt.
Absolutely. It was like a stab in the gut.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started talking about it, I started to cry.
I'm
like,
oh
my gosh,
did.
I don't cry in front of people.
Because I was like, oh, so she feels like I felt it. I didn't know you. I'm like, oh, this hurts.
Yeah. And I hate to say this, but I'm not one to hold back, but I don't understand why us women feel this way, but men do this stuff all the time. And I'm like, how do you not feel guilty of being on all the time, from your kids? Because there's so many male coaches and not as many female coaches. But I think it's that motherly instinct, you know what I mean? We just naturally feel like we are supposed to be there for our kids. But then at the same time, we should be allowed to go do those things that we love. That's our passion. And then, why should we be judged any different? I think some people do judge women for being away from their kids.
Yeah, I think they do. Jen Brooks, she's the athletic director over at Ursuline, talked a little bit about that, how her dad, she's like kind of the first of female athletic directors in her line. Her dad was an athletic director, but how many times as a kid too that you're dragged to coach his stuff? My daughter Harper legitimately thought she was a member of the team, and she was just the 2-year-old who was busting up ball skills, right? Yeah. She was busting up the drills, but she felt a part of it. She was drug everywhere, of course, with that. Did your kids get drug around too?
My oldest, my oldest was with me because I was a single parent. So it's like if I wanted to coach and make extra money, then he had to go with me. But then he became our mascot, and the parents, they would always be like, hey, if he doesn't want to sit on the bench, he can sit over here with us and our kids. And, he did.
Oh,
he
to have everywhere. A sideline of parents that watch your kid. Oh, I know that. Thank you, Oakville United.
But also for Caleb, I think it was good for him because he got to hear me coaching. And that's, a side that most kids don't get to hear. So, as he was younger, he heard me, all the things that, I was telling my players. And so as he grew up, he already knew that. So he was kind of ahead of where he normally would be because he grew up hearing about it, so.
Well, I got one more before, and JB is here, by the way. I didn't kick him out.
No. I know my place.
No.
I'm waiting.
No, you have great questions, but I think this. So I would have saved this, but since we dug right into it, do you wonder and have thoughts on maybe why we don't have more female coaches? Because it could be that. So I think you're exactly right. Your sons growing up and seeing you coach, my sons saw me coach, so they don't think anything of. They don't. It's like I remember when you posted about being SWIC's coach. I was like, look at that. And my son was like, so you coach? He didn't think it was as cool as I thought. I was like, oh my God. And he was like, yeah, you coached me. Yeah. And I was like, oh, to normalize that pattern for them, to not only coach girls, but that boys benefit from also being coached by knowledgeable coach women.
Yeah.
And your boys love you there at college.
They are the best.
They love you.
So
I watched your videos.
blessed.
I'm like, oh my God, I want to just go coach them for a day because they make me feel good.
They have been amazing. But that's a relationship that you have to build. You know what I mean? So, and that's with any coaching job. You have to make sure you let the players know, like, I'm here for you. I want to help you. I want to, like, just tell me what you need to help you be a better player and to get you to the next level and whatever it is. So, I mean, although I'm hard on them, I also have that, which I'm supposed to be, right? But I also have that motherly side. So, like, people thought it would be different for me to come in and maybe more difficult for me to coach men, but it's not. I think that they see me, they respect me, and they're like, no, she takes care of us, which is something that we need, and she cares. But at the same time, like, I'll mom them. I always call them, I'll mom you. I'm a mom here.
Well, let me ask a question then, because I see it through, excuse me, Beckett's experience currently with City on the 16s. Mm-hmm. The club at all the age groups has taken significant steps in addressing mental coaching, mental preparation, etc. Clubs like St. Louis Development
Academy.
They've put in an individual into that position specifically to address emotional connectivity, things like that. And I'm hearing you talk in particular, Lindsay, about how you also have that motherly instinct, as a coach. Do you think that this new focus, this emphasis on kind of the brain side of the game as well, do you think you got a little bit of a head start? Is this kind of like this, because most male coaches that I've ever had, it was a non-starter. It was just something that was never discussed.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just implicit, or do you think it's going to become more and more of a learned trait over time?
I'm not sure. I just feel like emotionally women are more emotional. And so I feel like I tap into that and I understand both sides of it, which makes it more easy for me to kind of connect with my players. So I don't even know if I'm really thinking about it. I think it's just something that kind of comes natural, to be honest with you. So
do you see that it creates a stronger relationship vertically and horizontally across player to player as well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, each player is different, and that's something as a coach that you have to know. Like, you can't treat all your players the same. So I think it's very important for me to sit down and learn the backgrounds of all my players, and not just what they are soccer. Like, how's it going at home? How's that going? What's your family life like? To see how they struggle and what they need. So, and I don't know how many other coaches do that, or if they give somebody else in the program, that's somebody else's job to deal with it. But for me, because I don't have that type of support where I coach, I just do it all myself. So it's really good to have that connection, because then I check in on them, like, hey, how's it going? Like, I'm sorry you and your girlfriend broke up. Are you okay? Do you need to talk about it or whatever? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it does give me a little bit of an edge.
Well, I think too, it's important to say that but both genders are emotional. I mean, if you've ever seen, like, if you see Liam's team start to lose, he will come off the couch and throw a fit, and that is emotion. That is anger. That is frustration. What I think I like that you said is, though, you normalize. I think females in particular normalize emotions that, unfortunately and not good, have been stereotypically banned from males. That they can't feel they can't be upset, they can't be. And Liam, my son Liam, again, here he is, came off of wrestling, and so he won his first wrestling tournament this year. Yay! And his main sport is soccer, but he wrestled, and he wrestled really hard, and he wrestled really smart. But he will always hug the other. Like, here's two kids that just try to beat the poo out of each other. Yeah. He hugs them, and a couple of them, he's like, yeah, he cried. And he thinks nothing of it. Like, he sometimes he goes, sometimes I cry because I just have to get it out. And I'm like, yes, I'm thankful that apparently maybe George and I did a good job, and that your coaches are like, create a safe space to express those emotions. And then, like JB was alluding to, that kind of does drip over to each other, right? Where instead of just maybe walking away and swallowing it, maybe you have a player that puts his arm around the other player and is like, you all right, dude? Yeah. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I find it funny because, I mean, there's so many instances, both on the big screen and in our own little local neighborhood teams, I don't care what the sport is, where there's these cool themes of, we need chemistry, we need to build this camaraderie, we need to trust each other. But yet there's not really skill sets or drills or training that's put into place to actually do that. Yeah. It's kind of expected to become organic. And what you're talking about, and Jen, what you do kind of helps, like, hey, let's open the door to this. Let's actually allow this to not just be organic, but be intentional.
Right. Yeah. One thing that I really like that we did this year is we had one-on-one sessions, like in one of our pregame thing, or not a pregame, but a preseason thing. So each player like linked up with another player, and for 5 minutes they had a conversation, just talking to each other and getting to know one another. Because it's hard when, especially with the turnover at JUCO. I mean, you got a whole half of a team basically coming in, they don't know each other, and chemistry is a big thing. And so you can't have that chemistry if you don't like actually try to form a bond with your teammates. So one-on-one, and how often are they going to go up to someone and say, "Hey, man, let's me and you sit down and have a conversation"? They're not going to do it. And so we were like, no, this is what we do. And it was kind of like, it was like speed dating, like I had a...
Did you see anything come out of that?
Yeah, because they actually got to know. And I was like, what'd you find out about so-and-so? Oh, I found out, like, he has 5 brothers or whatever, like they got to know each other more personally, and they broke the ice, know? And because I did it the first week of our preseason. They literally broke the ice, and then when they saw each other, it was like, "Hey, man, what's up?" And it was like, it was done after that. They were all like, "No, I know this person because I talked to him for a while." It was great.
It's one of those things. It's super easy to belittle an individual that is fighting you for your spot. It's harder to belittle an individual in which you kind of like what they like.
Yeah.
You have commonality.
Yes.
It's that humanization, right? Of that's one of the reasons I liked being on the city practices and sidelines many times. Like I have a gut. I know maybe strategically it makes sense for Jared Stroud to have been traded. Like, I get that, but I feel, because I got to know him, I feel punched in the gut by it. Like, I know how he is between their drills, and I know what he's faced, and he's shared some of that with me. And granted, they were interviews and not really a personal conversation, but yeah, getting to know that person and humanizing them.
Yes.
And study after study will show you, whether it's sports performance, work performance, anything that involves teamwork, that when there is bonding outside, there's usually correlated better performance on the field.
Yes, I agree with that. And I definitely could tell, because this year we had, there was hardly any drama. It was great. And they were like a family. They literally would be like, "No, we're a family." And they would, like, they prayed before games together. I was not a part of that, nor did I require it. Like, they had their own little niche and would hang out outside. And it was great. You could tell that it translated onto the field. It was awesome to see it.
It's so funny that you said that. I was just on, again, Jen Brooks comes up. She has like a monthly call for her athletic directors. It's a mostly a female group. But they had Julie Foudy on.
I saw that.
And it was super cool, because one of the things Julie talked about in her 30 minutes of kind of just answering questions from Jen was the fact that they had a great coach, and they could have the communication was really important, that they could go to the coach and be like, "Hey, dude, when you're screaming your head off, like, this is not helpful to me." And he'd be like, "Okay, you're right. Like, I'll work on that." Like, that was one thing. But she said when it came to inter-team stuff, she's like, we basically handled that. Like, we handled that amongst ourselves. Like, we worked that out.
Yep.
We figured that out. This also is a different generation, so they played pranks on each other. She's a little bit older. Maybe they weren't as being as earlier Ruth Harker probably has many stories. But she's like, they handled that amongst themselves interpersonally, and it translated then to the field.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And especially if you create that environment.
But you got to create it, right?
You have to create it, because you can't expect them to do it on their own. You just can't. So you have to create it. And I like I said, I think that preseason thing where they did the speed dating soccer style, it was so good for them, because they literally got to just break that ice. And it
did anybody look at you and was like, what are we doing? I thought we were going to play soccer.
Honestly, well, because it was in between sessions. So we had double sessions, and then in between we would have like a classroom, and we would talk about like what our culture wanted to be. And honestly, I didn't tell them what the culture was going to be. They created it themselves. And that's a huge thing too, I found out as a coach, is if you let them set their own standards and their culture, then it's not you telling them what to do, it's them living up to their own expectations, which they set. So
can you give us an example of the culture? Because cultures can be described and defined. What were some of the things that they did that created this most recent season's culture? What did it look like? What was unique about that?
Well, first of all, because I'm at a college, the first thing they talked about was academics, which is fine, because if you're going to be performing on the field, you got to perform off of it. So they set standards, like they want their team GPA to be a 3.0 or higher or whatever. And then they said, we want you to show up early before practices to work on the things that you may not be as strong in. And then if you have an issue with someone, that you confront them face to face. And, you speak with someone respectfully and we don't yell at each other. So there's small little things that they all set that they followed through with, So it was great for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up, too, in some previous conversations, and I think it came up to Julie Foudy in the call as well, was because she's, broken into the broadcast side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has that kind of experience, and you're in a male-dominated field.
Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah.
And that presents, it can be awesome, and it can also present its challenges. Did you find that at all in coaching? Like, there was who was it that we had on, JB, that was like, oh my God, if I have another referee come over to my assistant male coach.
Yeah.
But have any of those?
I've had
or
that.
Is it not?
No, it's still there a little bit. I've definitely had that happen where, like in the past they would go up to, my assistant and then they'd be like, no, she's the head coach. That was annoying. But then it got to the point where the referees would tell each other, hey, just so you know, she's the head coach. And if you go up to the assistant, she's going to snap on you. So then it spread, And then I had a couple of situations.
I got to go crazy once and set the tone.
I had a couple situations. I mean, one, like this coach, I had talked to him. I set up the schedule. I called to confirm. I did all the things. And then when we arrived on the bus, he got on the bus and was like looking around. And I was like, yeah, can I help you? And he was like, well, I'm looking for so-and-so. And I'm like, well, he's with the women's team. Like I'm the men's coach. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, I've had some of that, and I'm like,
it's all
fine.
Online, dude.
Yeah, I mean, last year I had an instant where I was coaching a certain way, just tactically, and someone, the other coach yelled down like, "This isn't the women's game" to me, and I'm like,
no. Did you beat their ass?
We were winning.
What did your team say? I mean, did they react to that?
No, because that's part of the culture. I said, no. I said, here's the thing. Like, as a coach, like, this is my job, all right? And so that is my job. If I want to say something back to him, you got to, like, trust me that I will be the one to do that. Don't try to do my job for me. Same thing when it comes to the referees. Same thing, like, with parents yelling on the field. Like, that's one of my things.
You're like, I got it.
Yeah, well, because, like, I don't come to your office and yell. So don't come to my office and yell. This is my office. So this is my job. And that's kind of like my thing. So they don't. They're like, no, I know my coach. She can handle it if she wants to. And, as far as like players saying anything about me on the field, I'm like, just ignore those people. Like, I will handle it. You don't need to stick up for me. And they're great.
There are a lot of guys, soccer players and coaches that could learn a little something from the women's game.
They probably could.
Less
and
diving,
vice versa.
more
I've
technical.
learned a lot. I've learned a lot from them too.
For sure.
Like, for sure, it's a different type and style of game. The systems are different. You can do things a lot different. And I hate to say this, but women don't watch soccer as much as men do.
Yet.
And so okay, hopefully more and more. But one thing I like is, like, if I ever wanted to change my system, I could just tell the guys, if we're playing, let's just say, for instance, we're playing a 4-4-2, and I say, hey, okay, we're going to go to a 3-5-2. I don't have to like put cones out and like explain it to them. They've watched it and they know they can transition into it like immediately.
It's a FIFA thing too.
It must be a FIFA thing. I don't know.
Video game. And I think too, it's also generational. So
yeah.
I probably also would have had a hard time with that in a way, but my 7-year-old already knows what formations are. So and they put on, we have the women's games on and simultaneously sometimes with the men's, or we fight over who's going to put what on what TV. But yeah, she's my oldest one's 15, and I didn't grow up with position numbers. Were you wing mid or are you? We didn't use those, but she already knows all of them. Numbers. So I think sometimes too, it's maybe it's the U.S. catching up right culturally with how this game works. Number one, and number two, the more accessibility there is in like the U.S. women's national team or NWSL growing. You work with the WPSL, and those games becoming more accessible and available on media. Up here in bars where you look over on TV and you see like, oh, there's women's games that they will start watching. If I can get their head off their screen, their phone, they will start watching.
That's the big key, is getting getting them off social media to actually watch a game. But that was the one thing I think that frustrated me a little bit with my WPSL team, because my players were super competitive. They did watch soccer a lot, but the the lower level women's teams, like I'd say, hey, the women's national team played last night. Did you watch? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even talk to you about it then,
right?
Because this is a conversation I want to have, and it's sad.
Well, and there's like elevated levels of ambivalence as well that's occurring now, because like sometimes even on the men's side, we will have a friendly. There will be a game that's on. I won't even know it's on because Champions League's the next day, or like my priorities are elevating. And I think the kids today, there's a lot of that going on too, because soccer's 24/7 at this point on television.
For sure.
So their ability to consume the best players in the world at all times is unlimited.
Yeah, right.
So I have a question. I'm going to go back to a little bit of the SWIC, your operations there, and specifically, reacting to, you being the female coach, like the opposing coach, throwing shade, etc. I'm curious about the recruiting process. Has that been, I have to assume that you've got stories, because it's, most people are not used to it. So I'm curious as to how that's going, to recruit when you walk in and you're a female head coach for a men's JUCO team. Yeah.
So locally, it honestly hasn't been that difficult, because locally, a lot of the kids know who I am. So I don't think I could have stepped into this role and not had some sort of background. Like if you're going to coach a men's team, they got to respect you, and you got to have something where they look at it and be like, okay, she's had some success on the coaching side. She's been in the men's game. That was a big thing, because I'm like, I've already played at a level you've never been at, so maybe you should listen a little bit. But it's been super easy for the local kids. And I've even gotten some kids that are, I have a kid from Texas, and it's a conversation. I think that once you get them, most of those guys I talk to on Zoom, because they're obviously not here, but it's a conversation, and they, if they feel like you care about them, it's pretty easy. The funny ones are the ones that don't look you up, that aren't from here, before you talk to them.
Mister.
And oh my gosh, excuse me, mister, excuse me, mister, I'm very interested in your program. I'm like, okay, I'm a ma'am, but that's fine. Or the ones where I'm like, hey, I'm interested, can I have a Zoom with you? And they're like, yep, I'd love it. And I love their reaction. Like, and I know every time, because I'll hit that video button, and then you see their face, they're like, they're shocked. They're like, oh shoot, there's a woman on the other end.
Dude.
But I'm just like, what's up? And they're just, because Lindsay could be a men's name in some countries, right? So
used to be.
It used to be, right? It used to be. Well, but
Fleetwood Mac.
There you go.
But this is definitely something where I always make sure when I recruit and do a video call, I have one of my players on. And typically it's one of my captains. I make them involved in this recruiting process as well. I'm like, hey, what did you think of the conversation? Because these are players that are going to play with them. And so they'll see me, they get confused, and then my captains will come up, and they're guys, and then they can speak about the program, and then it becomes more like, okay, well, this is legit. It's not just some female trying to scam me into playing for her team. They're like, no, like I have one from Brazil and one from England, and they get on, they're like, no, this is, this is legit. This is what's been a part of the program. This is how we do it. This, it's been all good. So I haven't had any issues,
So does it hit on you in this moment? It may not until you're done, but does it hit on this moment that you're kind of like the leading edge of the wave? You're not the only one. There's women out in football. There's women out there that are becoming normal for men to play for. And I find it so interesting. You probably as well. I grew up largely being coached by men. That's never a question of can a man coach a girl? Yes, they can. And I had great coaches. And to have the question many times it comes up. I have a friend who's in town. She'll probably be on this podcast at some point in time. Her name is Ellen, and she's interviewed before at maybe a Lindbergh or maybe Eureka. I don't remember who it was, but in the questions of being a boys coach, it was like, do you think you can handle the boys? And she's like, yeah, I got it, right? I got it.
I wish this was on video, because I believe your skin just peeled back.
Can you handle
inches.
them? Can you? Making people run pretty much handles
whenever
everything.
Somebody says that to you, what goes through your head? What do you want to say?
Well, I'll tell you what I do say, and it kind of stumps them. And I said, so I actually feel like in my position, which is a little different, I said, well, I feel like I have more experience coaching the men than a man would have coaching the women. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I don't know one man that's played women's professional soccer. but I have played men's professional soccer. So how would I be any less qualified to coach a men's team than he would be to coach a women's team? And he's never experienced even playing on a women's team before. And then they're all kind of like, whoa. They can't really respond. Checkmate. But I'm probably one of the few that can actually say that and get away with it, But then at the second time, I'm like, why raise 2 boys? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I know what it's, and I have a husband. So if I can deal with that, 24/7 at my house, I'm a boy
do you have
mom.
a dog?
Like,
do you have a dog too?
I have 2 dogs.
There you go.
Yeah, I have 2 dogs.
Thing?
So,
I have
one
2
of them's a male.
Chaos.
Yeah, no, and I just feel like, when it comes to coaching is teaching. And our female teachers teaching boys, yes, they are. So what's the difference whether it's in a classroom or on the field? It's teaching. I
love that point. That's a great point there.
So let me bring up this side of the college game in particular, because we alluded to it a little bit before we jumped on the mic. Talk about your thoughts and feelings specifically at the D1 level, because so many of the D1 programs are coached by men. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there needs to be more of a shift on that side as well? Because you're clearly a pioneer as a woman coaching the men's game. But there's a big gap still on the women's side of the game from a head coaching perspective. What's your thoughts on that side of the equation? Totally imbalanced? Does it need to be addressed, or do you think it's just going to sort itself out naturally over time, or does it stay status quo?
Well, the question is like, how many women are applying? Like, are women genuinely interested in coaching at the D1 level? Are they applying for jobs and men getting the job over them? Like, I don't know if, I don't know how many women are actually wanting to coach in college, because like we were talking about, I think that natural role is I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to get married, and then I become a mother, and I don't have time to do the D1 because I need to be at home with my kids. So I don't know how many women are actually wanting to be a Division I coach. We don't know, you know? So I would hope that more females would be like I am and like Jen is, and be like, no, you know what? This is something I'm passionate about. It is okay for me to be a mom and to pursue something that I love, like coaching, and knowing that taking time away from my family to provide for them is okay. So I don't know if that's been normalized,
I think it's interesting you say that, because I think it's changing. I think with our generation, for sure, I'm a bit older. I didn't coach D1. I coached only youth. And it was not a path that you looked at as being like a fit for, like that's not for me, because you didn't see me. You didn't see yourself doing it. So kids typically, look at everything that, when little boys are, what little boy growing up didn't imagine themselves to be a Major League Baseball player?
Right.
We have the Cardinals here, right? And then we Blues hockey. We had football here for a time. I'm talking back in the Cardinals days.
Yeah, wrestling at the Chase.
Wrestling at the Chase. Oh my God! How many times I jumped off the couch and did those moves, and my mom was like, "Don't you dare!" But when you see somebody that looks more like you, sounds more like you, you dream. And so when, we had Stephanie Gabbert on, she's been at NCAA, she coached for U.S. Soccer, Jackie Billett, they've all, Wendy Dillinger. Yep. There's not as many, but I think you said that is important, normalizing the fact that it can be hard, but not only can you, but maybe you should. Maybe it's good that your mom and your kids normalize seeing my mom's coaching a bunch of whoever, boys, girls. This is her job. She's out there taking on the other coach or referee or whatever, and they grow up in that environment.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a theory, because we're talking about perceived expectations or natural tendency of nurturing versus working in the evening times in particular, because what we're talking about in the coaching world, it's generally after 3:00. It's usually 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and at the academy levels and beyond, it's evening hours, right? Yet in the rest of the world, the business world, right, we're really talking about 7 to 4, 8 to 5, normal time frame. And women in the workforce, I mean, anybody that would deny this is a fool. The trajectory is off the charts, like the growth of high power women that are CEOs and managing partners. I mean, that's exploding. But they're doing that at the same time that their children, that the family's kids are in school.
Yeah, correct.
So do you think that it's just maybe a little bit of the nature of the game in which that's family time for the vast majority of households in this country between 5 and 10,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're
that's
right.
homework, that's dinner, etc. So do you think that just that kind of logistics is slowing down progress of women coaching as well?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit.
because how many coaches though in high school, in those hours, or even club, are male coaches, and they're not accessible, right? You're either not accessible or your kids are with you.
Your kids are with you, yeah.
eating their food. That it might be a societal standard where it becomes just as normal, just as hard, right, on the other spouse. I've been the spouse coaching. I've been the other spouse doing all the running while somebody else is coaching, where it just becomes it's less. I don't know that necessarily. I couldn't tell you if women are not interested, but there is a dynamic at home that has to shift, right?
Yeah.
So when you're after school, and even teachers, right? Teachers stay up many times after school. They're not available. When you're staying after school and coaching right after, or whatever those times look like, if you've got kids, somebody's doing the other work. Now, if you can pay somebody to do that, great.
Good for you.
You're good for you. But many times it is, and I think sometimes this is just Jen's soapbox. I feel like many times in our country still it's shifting that it's predominantly defaulted to the mom.
Yeah.
And so it makes it hard to be like, yeah, sure, I want to go out there and coach for a couple of hours and try to figure out how to get my kids also to practices at this time. And when we're done, when I'm done and I'm bringing 4 children, this is personal, 4 children home from Oakville High School, and they are starving and they're hungry and my spouse is traveling, that kind of stuff.
And they have homework.
And because they probably didn't do it
And
right
a
when they
runny
come.
nose.
Yeah,
And a little bit of...
And then you have chores at home too. You got the dishes, the laundry, all the things.
Right. Right.
I'm a if you want it done right, I got to do it myself type of person. So I could put that on someone's list, but I might look at it and be like, nah,
that's awful.
Doesn't work on my standard. So there's all that.
But so I went over and took over the answer. But do you feel the same or differently? Feel free to disagree. That it for me it's heavily influenced by the family social dynamic that is still pretty prevalent in the country. However, if I hear my daughters speaking right, they fully intend to grow up in something a little bit different.
Yeah, I agree. No, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Let's shift a little bit back into the weeds of soccer. Obviously, the two of you both spent the season working with City, front row seat on the field, in the box, being part of just really a special kickoff. I mean, there's no way anybody could have scripted it. We could have been a little bit better past KC, but it was just an amazing season. And at the same time, in a parallel universe in other cities, the growth of the NWSL is really picking up speed. Obviously, the women's game is near and dear to both of your hearts. Mm-hmm. Seeing what City did in that ownership group and looking across the state at that stadium and what the Current is doing, give me your 2 cents, 10,000-foot view of how long and how excited would you be to see NWSL pop up under the arch?
I can't even describe it, to be honest with you, because it's something that you've always wanted. And unfortunately, when I was coming out of college, they had the W League was there. I think it was, what was it called, the WUSA at that time?
WUSA, yeah.
WUSA, the WUSA League. And I got invited out to a tryout, and while I was out there, the league folded. So then there were no options for women, which is why I played for the Steamers. And I was like, man, this stinks that there's no options for women. And if there was an option here in St. Louis, I'm going to be jealous, to be honest with you. I'm going to be mad that I wasn't here earlier, but oh my gosh, I would be so excited and I would be itching to be a part of it because, growing the women's game has always been huge for me.
How well do you think it would be received here?
Well, in St. Louis, very well. I would hope so.
I would agree. I mean, my daughters love going to see City, right? They love the environment. They love the thing. They love staying for autographs and all that stuff. But Liam can dream to be one of them. Mm-hmm. They can't at this point. And so what might that feel like? I took Marin, this Tournament of Nations, I think it was, in Kansas City years ago. And she was just to see the sparkles in her eyes and to see and to be, she's like, I want to be one of them. And it was like, I don't know if she will be. I don't care if she is, but it's so cool
Yeah.
that she could dream in a little bit different way.
Right, yeah.
That you can when she's watching City play.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have role models, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice to have something to aspire to. And who doesn't want to grow up and be like, you know what? I dream to play for my hometown professional team. I mean, every kid has that dream, right? So, I mean, if we ever actually have that option, which we should, we're St. Louis. We're, dear, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, I mean,
We'll
the
cease
first.
and desist then.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
We are the first. We are though the first soccer city in the U.S. and so we should have that. We have it for the men, and I know it's going to take a little time because obviously it just is. I would hope in the near future, within the next 5 years, that we see a women's team here.
Wow, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I love City and everything, but I'd be like, hey guys,
I'm out.
If they've got I mean, I can do both.
Yeah.
How many times? Men do both. I can do
that's
both.
true.
I can do
That's
both.
true.
But
I can do
yeah,
both, too.
it would be super, really cool, and to see that at that level. Whereas the U.S. women's national teams come here, but they're not going to be here all the time. They travel. They go all over the place. But to have a hometown people that are, we know that the guys are off right now and they're around town and they're always people like, oh, I saw so and so at Straub's or
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. You see these people, they're amongst us,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so, to have female players that are amongst us, I think would be awesome for the kids to know.
And
Not
you know
that
what's
far.
cool? We have 2 former U.S. women's national team captains from St. Louis. I don't know many towns that can say that.
Right.
That is huge
Yeah.
to be able to say that. And we
No.
don't have a women's team here.
Yeah, no, I mean the metrics are just. I get tired debating my peers, my sub peers across the state about these types of things.
Sub-peers.
It's like, when you look at any aspect of the game historically, pick the generation.
Mm-hmm.
We've been relevant the whole time, and in the women's game in particular, that. I don't know what the exact number is, but there's a ratio. There's a percentage of influence that St. Louis has had on the game, on the men's side, for a long, long time. But on the women's side, it's the same. Whether it's Becky and crew and ECNL national championships, and you just take your pick.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, St. Louis women's soccer is nationally relevant in the elite club.
Yeah.
So for us to not yet have an NWSL team, I think that is probably just a little bit bigger of a speed bump or whatever's going on. I don't see how we don't land on one, personally.
Yeah, I mean, and not just that. Look how SLU has been amazing.
Oh, my
Katie
gosh.
Shields, oh my gosh. I just want to sit in her office and be like, what are you doing over here?
Right.
They're number 10.
Let me be a fly on your wall.
Something. Yeah, just let me sit here and listen to you a little bit. But she's done amazing things. And you got originally, I mean, it started with UMSL. Remember when what was it, 1980 something, where they beat, North Carolina for the NCAA? I mean, that's insane that happened. So we've had some great women's soccer players come out of this area. So,
one thing that, just to bring it back, I was listening to you guys talk and thinking back to some of our previous guests, and there's a prevailing theme. I like themes and patterns. So you'd mentioned it with your boys' team, your men's team, that relationship coaching. What you're really talking about is relationship coaching, right? And we already know it's prevalent as being a new model in the workforce, right? Not treating your people like they're automatons and knowing that they don't work in a bubble. They have home, they have life, and those are more successful managers. But Shelley Clark was on, and she talked about relationship building. We know that Carolyn Kindle leads with relationship building. And I just think Bree McCarthy, who has coached, she was our first episode. She coached my daughter, and I guarantee that Marin has not and may not ever have a coach that has poured more into her when it comes to her relationship. Not that she hasn't had great coaches. When it comes to knowing her as a human and a soccer player, nobody has poured more into her than Bree. And I just over and over, Stephanie Gabbert talked about even when she would take over a team that she would get to know them as human beings, just like you did. And I feel like that that for a long time, women have tried and have been kind of pushed to fit into a man's style, right? You're in a man's world, figure out how to be this way and this way. And that's not necessarily true. I wonder out loud is if women like yourself and Shelley and Stephanie and Bree are actually showing how there could be a better way. There could be a better or as good as a way to lead in that way.
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you what, I saw that video and I played it over and over. I think you put it on Twitter. One of your guys scored.
And they all ran over.
I was like, oh.
There was twice they did
I just wanted to ask you, but can I sit on your sideline in case they do that?
I know. There was twice where, like, the first game back, then they all ran over and hugged me. And then the ref was like, please stay on the field. I'm like, it's unlimited subbing. Like, really?
Come on.
It's a big deal. So then he kind of said something about, and then there was another time where this individual, he was like, every time I score, I'm going to come over and hug you, coach. And I'm like, I would love that. I'd love that, So
and that's awesome. And they play better.
Yeah.
When you play for stuff like that, when you play, we all know that when you play for things that are bigger than yourself or for a relation, sometimes players will play for a family member or something else. More happens and beautiful things happen. I loved that.
Yeah, and I hate to say this too, but I think the passing of my father this year has really brought our team together too, which was a big part of it. I mean, obviously they showed up to that game with the shirts, and I've never cried in front of them because I try to keep that I'm tough, that was completely touching and just like it was amazing. And then they showed up to my dad's funeral wearing them, and it was, I think that was a big part of it too. That shows that we're a family, and as much as I'm there for them, like they're there for me too, and that's important for a coach to know.
How hard is it for you though, because you're in a JUCO, so this familial relationship that you develop,
I know
at most it's a 2-year cycle.
I know, and that's the part I hate about it.
Yeah, but I think you're going to have those forever, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like I still remember coaches, and if I passed them, I'd be like, Coach Wallach, but I think forever, especially if you have a relationship with them, you're a coach forever.
Yeah, I've had players who have moved on and are playing somewhere else or playing professionally, and they've called me and been like, hey, coach, I want to talk to you about what's going on over here. Like, and this is just, my second year, so players from just last year, like I'm having issues with my new coach. Like, what do you think I should say? What do you think I should do? And so they've called me, and I'm like, I love this. This is just super important.
How active are you with the players? Because obviously with the transfer portal, being so prevalent, what's your role in that process when they do when they're on their way out? Are you do you have a system in place in helping with that transfer?
Yeah, I do. And the first thing I do, and this took me so long. So I went and I got all the contact information for Division I, Division II, all of them. So every single coach, I looked them up like individually on sites, and I created an Excel spreadsheet. And then I create an Excel spreadsheet for my players that is like on Google Docs, right? So anybody can access it. So I put all of their information on this sheet, like what their major is, what their budget is, whatever, and I send it out to all of these coaches. So they have it's probably 300 plus coaches that I send it out to. If someone's interested, then they contact us back, and then we start it. So I'm like, I have the access. And then, if no one does, then I personally sit down with them, and then I tell them, like, this is where I think you would be a good fit, because I won't put my name on a player who is, Division 3 or NAI level who wants to go Division I. I'm like, no, like I don't want to set you up for failure, where you're going to lose your confidence playing or maybe not playing and, whatever. So I have a conversation with them about that, but I'm very involved. And I think it's very important for people to know that you, as a JUCO coach, you have to build relationships with the next level, those four-year universities, and they have to trust your evaluation of players, because if you send them a donkey, they're never, ever going to go to you again.
Yeah, they're not picking up the phone again.
Ever. And so that's why it's very important. And I think I've done a good job just knowing people in the community and around the country with the WPSL. I've gotten to know a lot of coaches, and that I have that good relationship with them, where if I do text them, they're like, who you got? Yep, I'll pick this player up, because they don't even have to see him. They just know, like, no, if she's recommending this player, they're going to be good for my program. So
let me ask a part B to the question, then shift it all the way down to the other end of the spectrum, the youth game, youth, junior high, younger ages. Specifically, because when you joined us, it's been a minute now, over on the Soccer Dad side, we had a part of the conversation in which evaluating talent, and you were just referencing it in, you're not good enough for D1, so D2, D3. Talk a little bit about managing expectations if you were to advise parents that are coming up through this process, because everybody thinks little Johnny and Jamie and everything are brilliant.
Right.
But the reality
Sometimes
is,
your club will tell you they are,
yes,
or they won't tell you they're not.
Exactly.
Yes.
So speak to the harm that misleading younger players at younger and younger ages, what that can do to the development, because how important is it to be truthful and honest about ability and pathway and opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be truthful about that, and I think it comes with, like you said, some of the coaches will be like, you're D1 because they want to put it on their website and they want to be able to promote that so they can pick up the better players later. It's a recruiting tactic. And I can't tell you how many times, and I've been out of the club world for a while, that I've had parents say, hey, my daughter went and played Division I. It's not working out. She didn't play at all. Is there any way you can help us transfer? And I had nothing to do with their club or even really know them, but they were misplaced. And then their confidence goes down. And when their confidence goes down, it's very hard for certain individuals to pick that back up. So it's very important for those club coaches to tell those players, like, hey, like, this is what's best for you, instead of saying this is what's best for us as a club, because it will affect the kid later in life whenever they're failing and they're not used to failing and feeling that, So, and it's important for the parents to stay out of it, or at least be realistic in all of that. And then I think the third thing is, players need to be honest with themselves. I think a lot of the times they tell themselves they're better than what they really are, and then they don't research what the levels actually look like. Because, like the JUCO level, I've competed with Division II teams. We haven't played a Division II team, but we beat Division II teams. We beat Division III teams. So, we beat NAIA teams. So JUCO doesn't mean that we're a low level.
Oh my gosh,
it's a different route, and we've got a really good team, especially with the foreign situation with internationals coming in. We've got people coming in that are 23, 25. I had a 27-year-old on my team from South Africa last year. So if you think your 18-year-old that plays in the academy can compete against my 27-year-old South African, then feel free. You know what I mean? So it's recognizing too that the levels are changing, and it's about what's best for your kid.
Yeah, when I played for Lindenwood, I think it was my sophomore year. We played Merrimack, and they were junior college national champions, and we ended up tying them on our home field, and we were super pissed. And our coach was like, "No, that's a good team. By the way, I'm going to recruit some of those players because they're going to be done, and I hope to get them for the third year here." And so we got great players from junior college. And I forgot the question I was going to ask you. Dang it! So JB, do you have one?
No.
I had one
the
coming,
whole JUCO
and then I
thing, though. The JUCO thing here in St. Louis, like so many other things that are soccer relevant, we're just different. Historically, Flo Valley, Merrimack, take your pick.
Yeah.
Name another city that's won more junior college national championships than St. Louis has.
Yeah.
Across 3 or 4 different JUCOs.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a byproduct of just population. Our
Right.
culture is a soccer culture.
I remember what it was.
See, I bought you time.
She raised her
Thank
hand.
you.
I bought you
I
time.
raised my hand because I was like, wait, I got it. But the way you were talking, JB should remind us of Wendy when we had Wendy Dillinger on. So and she's,
I coached with her. I don't know if you know that.
So I think I did. I think she mentioned that. But it reminds me of the way, even I think before you were coaching together, she was over at Fuse, and I remember the first time she talked in front of us as parents, I was like, oh, I played against Wendy. This is going to be good. She's going to work these girls.
Yeah.
But I remember how important, like, even they were several years younger. They're 15 now, so probably 12 or 13.
Right.
Of her just kind of saying, hey, eventually down the line, this could be something, and I really want you to think about fit.
Yeah.
She really talked about the importance of fit, that
Yep.
D1 is not for everybody.
No.
It may fit you as a player just skill-wise,
Yep.
but the life of a D1 player may not fit you.
100%.
And D3 or D2 even, whatever that might, like, that you really have to get to know everything, because just playing in those games and at practices, there's so much more to your college experience, and that fit is so important. It sounds like that's what you were saying.
Yeah, well, because and I experienced that. I went Division I and played at Kansas, and then I came home and played at Harrisdale. And I think kids nowadays, they think that where they play and the level that they play at defines them, and it does not. It's
or
about
their
what
parents
you.
think
Yes,
it too.
and they do. They compete with other parents, so who can have the best, whatever. But it's
Bumper
not about
stickers.
Yes, it literally is. It's not about what you do in college. It's about what you do when you get out of college. Like, you can get your degree anywhere. And I've asked some of the kids that I've recruited, and I think I said this on last show, I'm like, do you know where I played in college? And they're like, no. And I'm like, exactly, because no one cares. Once you get out of college and you move on with your life, no one cares when you got your degree.
But This is St. Louis. Where'd you go to high school?
Oh, I know.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Where'd you go? Everybody knows that.
You guys were on the Illinois side.
Yeah.
So I don't even know.
Yeah.
The right side. You mispronounced
Oh,
right.
goodness. Oh my goodness. So I wish that wasn't a thing where the kids were like, oh,
Right.
in order for me to be known as this amazing soccer player, I have to play here. Well, and I think it's also important that not everybody's financial situation is
Oh,
the
my
same.
gosh.
I don't think people understand, like, they're like, oh, my kid's going to get a full ride. There's hardly any,
No.
there's no such thing as that anymore,
really
unless you
isn't.
go to a JUCO.
Oh,
like,
they're
honestly.
or they're playing golf.
Or they're playing golf. Yeah, something else.
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
They're
But
not playing soccer for a full ride.
That's not, it's not a true thing. So I wish that thing would change, because I would love to go after some players, but sometimes I'm like, I don't want to waste my time because they're going to think that I'm beneath them, and really we're not. Some of those players, they probably can't even play on my team, to be honest.
I feel like I want to ask a selfish question. For I work with athletes on mindset, and it's a place that I struggle myself. If as a coach, whatever, coaching women, coaching men, but something that's universal. Somebody's got little one, 10 to 11, 12 years old. I like it when they're that age, because they're so much more accepting and malleable for new ideas. If you like one thing, by the time these players are coming to see you at whichever level, WPSL, college, when it comes to like mindset skills or mental, how they approach their game, besides all the touches that we do, is there something in particular like this player just was able to do this, or was able to do this, whether it's recovering from mistakes or whatever that might be? What would that be?
That's the big thing.
I took it. I'm
want to
sorry.
see. No, that's it. I want to see how they react when their coach yells at them. How, like, when they make a mistake, what their reaction is. How they are with their teammates. How they are with the referees. Those are the things I look at. The skills are
body language.
Body language, big time. That's a big thing for me, because it tells me kind of how they are as a person and an individual. You can have skill. I've seen people have skill where I'm like, I don't want that kid a part of my program, because
So that's
he's
not a
yelling
myth,
and
right? This
screaming.
happens.
It does happen.
I tell the kids,
And-
this is not a myth. You're saying this is real.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'll tell you another thing I look at is the parents. I do, because there's times where I've been sitting on the sideline and this mom has screamed out stuff about the other kid on the team, or yelled stuff about the ref, and I'm listening. I'm like, I don't want that on my sideline.
Yeah.
I do, and I hate to say that. Now that's not what the determining factor is necessarily, but if it's like, if that's what I'm going to have to deal with, I don't want that type of.
No, it's real.
It is.
I wish more coaches would just admit that is a causal reason.
Yeah.
To say we're not a fit.
Yeah.
Clubs in particular.
Right.
Because right now the scenes on the sidelines at the club level, pick your age, I don't even CYC, it's ridiculous.
Oh,
it is
yes.
bad. But I also feel like that's an
toxic.
expectation that needs to be set from the top, because I did that in
Absolutely.
my club. I literally had a meeting with my parents, and I go, hey, I'm not going to come to your office and yell, don't come to mine. If you're on the sideline and you're screaming because the referee made a bad call, then how are you going to react when your kid comes to you and is upset because he didn't get your way? Well, guess what? That's what you show. You show that you're going to throw a tantrum when you don't get your way, and that's how they're going to react.
Yeah, I have a theory. My theory is called the Disney dog theory, where the human owner has a dog that looks just like them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's what happens.
Oh, it absolutely.
You are an example.
does.
You are a complete example, and your kid will do what you do. So if you're throwing a fit, yelling at the refs, guess what? He's going to do the same thing. And I don't want anything. I don't want to have that a part of that. I just don't want anything.
Next chapter. What's next chapter for LKE?
Oh my gosh.
What do you have going on?
I know, like every time there's some new. So also not only St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, but the most recent induction was
Missouri Sports Hall of Fame.
Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean,
Congratulations.
Yeah,
And then,
congratulations.
St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame in February. I said they're running out
I'm
of
busy.
options. They're like, it's like one did it, and they're like, we're going to copy.
You're like, you have to
And
give
you
me
thought
different
you
colored
could just have it.
jackets,
Yeah,
though.
I was going to say, you thought a navy blazer would last you your whole life. Now you're up to 3 different colors.
Well, they don't give colors, but the last one, I was seriously starstruck because I got inducted with Adam Wainwright and Barrett
Wow.
Jackman and Jay Delsing and Kenny Wallace and Todd Light from the Rams. I was like, I walked into the room where everybody was sitting, and they're like, okay, go sit at the table with them. And I'm like, am I going to get jumped by security if I go over there? Because I'm kind of scared, to be honest. And then, and then it's the awkward sit down because you're like sitting down with professionals. So
hey.
I'm like, hi.
Which you are one too.
Yeah, but like it was weird, but it was great. You forget that they're humans too.
Yeah.
You really do, and that you can have frank conversation. And they were all super nice.
Did Adam give you a copy of his new CD?
No, he did not. But I did question him on something. He was very shocked, and I asked him. I said, "Are you left eye dominant?" And he was like, "Yes." How did you know that? And I go, "Well, because he's a hunter, right?" And I was like, "Well, you shoot your bow left-handed, but you pitch right-handed." He's like, how did you know that? And I'm like, I just watched your video. And it's like
he was like, sit down next to me.
Yeah,
you sit next to me.
This is so crazy that she knows this about me because it's something, So it was kind of funny how
that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you gotta that's small talk. That's small talk to the next level.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
talk. But I mean, so I'm thinking besides, so college season's over, right? And then I don't know what your work with the WPSL is. It like ongoing? Because I know you do other stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm the associate commissioner for the Central Region, so we're
you're
always
busy
prepared.
all the time.
Yeah, we have meetings every Wednesday, and we're trying to,
And then City will fire back up here at the stadium,
come back up
hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So we'll hear her analysis in stadium next to Kristen Carver, who I love. I'm like, oh, there they are. They both are here. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's just such a small community. I mean, we see each other everywhere, and I think it's awesome.
Me too.
I think the city park and the team, and it's just like we've always been relevant, but it feels different. And I'm congratulations to you for being an integral part of that. And this has been a blast.
It has been.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
having me.
I'll be seeing
you soon.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And thank you to Mellow Mushroom.
I'm ordering a pizza.
Me too. I was like, I need to order some. I'm starving.
Yeah, so I'm officially at 39 hours, and I think that's about where it's going to stop.
It's close enough.
It should.
It's fine.
Like,
you
it's
need
hard.
something.
I do. Do I? I don't look.
You look
epic.
pale.
Do I? I probably do.
Yeah. I'm
Probably.
starving right now.
I am too.
Just kidding.
Well, hey everybody, thank you for listening.
It'd be a cheap date though, because there's just one drink.
I know. 1 Miller Lite. Blah. Okay, I'm out.
Okay, I'm done.
Hey, we'll see you guys next time. Have a great holiday season. Soccer Mom Sunday with Jen and Lindsay. We're out of here. See ya.